Over the last few years, we have watched the cost of gaming quietly spiral out of control, and most people haven't stopped to realize just how far things have gone. The PS5 launched in 2020 at $399 for the digital edition, and that felt reasonable. Fast forward 6 years, and that same digital PS5 now costs $600. No new hardware, no new features, just a higher price tag for the same exact box. And PlayStation's price hikes haven't stopped at hardware. For 11 years, PS Plus had held steady at $50 a year, 11 years of straight consistency. And then in 2022, Sony introduced a new tiered subscription system, and the hikes started rolling in almost immediately. First, the tiers went up, and then the tiers went up again, and now what used to cost $50 a year now costs significantly more, and depending on the tier, you could be paying up to $130 a year for PlayStation Plus. Microsoft followed the exact same playbook with Game Pass, and prices that felt reasonable at launch have been quietly climbing ever since. And for a long time, it felt like Valve was the last major gaming company that simply refused to play this game. Steam sales with fair pricing, no subscription required. Valve felt untouchable for a while, and then this week happened. Valve announced that the Steam Deck OLED is getting a significant price increase. We're talking about increases of $240 to $300 overnight on hardware that hasn't changed at all. There's no upgrade, no justification beyond the state of the world that we're living in right now. And before we move on, the Switch 2 is also scheduled to get a $50 price increase as well, which, looking at the context of all the other companies that are having a price hike right now, that almost sounds manageable. What makes the Steam Deck situation particularly painful is the timing of it all. The device has been sold out for months. People have been waiting and waiting for stock to come back, and when it finally did, it came back at prices nobody was expecting. Valve essentially said, here's your Steam Deck, and by the way, it now costs $200 more than it did when you couldn't find one. Gaming is getting too expensive, and there's no relief in sight. Hello, welcome or welcome back. If this is your first time here, my name is Stu, and this is my gaming corner. On this channel, I'll talk about upcoming games, gaming news, and just some overall thoughts and updates on what I've been playing. I'm also a teacher, so gaming has always been one of those passions that I come back to, and it's kind of my way to unwind and stay connected to something I've always enjoyed. So if you're into gaming too, and you want more real, honest takes on what's happening in the gaming industry, consider subscribing to the channel. And with that being said, let's get back into the video. To understand where we are, you first have to understand how we got here, because this didn't happen overnight. For most of the last 2 decades, the standard price for a premium AAA game was $60. That number held for so long that it felt like an unspoken agreement between the industry and the people who are paying the games. You knew exactly what you're signing up for, $60 for a new game, full stop, and you were fine. Then this generation arrived, and that number quietly became $70. It wasn't a big announcement, it wasn't a press conference, it just kind of happened. And most people just accepted it because what else were they going to do? Here's where it gets genuinely uncomfortable. With GTA 6 on the horizon, there are serious rumblings that Rockstar could price it at $100 for one single game. And the terrifying part isn't the number itself, it's that if GTA 6 does sell at $100, and it should sell millions of copies, every single major publisher is going to look at that and see a new baseline for the industry. We went from $60 to $70 almost without blinking. The jump from $70 to $100 might happen faster than anyone is ready for. And that's before you factor in what modern AAA gaming actually costs after the game launches. The base game is rarely the full product anymore. With DLC, season passes, battle passes, cosmetic stores, deluxe editions that include content that used to just be in the game originally, the real cost of a modern AAA title isn't really $70 anymore. For a lot of games, it's well over $100 once you include everything that you actually want with the game. So with everything going on all at once, it leads to the question, why is everything getting so expensive at the same exact time? Because this is not a coincidence. The obvious answer is inflation and tariffs. The cost of everything has gone up, and hardware manufacturing is no exception. Components cost more, shipping costs more, and those costs get passed down to the consumer. That part is straightforward and honestly fair to acknowledge. These companies aren't operating in a vacuum. But there's another factor that doesn't get talked about enough in my opinion, and it's the rise of AI. The AI boom has created an absolutely insatiable demand for high-end memory and storage components. Every major tech company around the world is racing to build data centers, scale infrastructure, and chase what they see as the next gold rush. That demand is pulling components out of the consumer hardware market and driving prices up across the board. The RAM shortage that Valve specifically cited as the reason for the Steam Deck price increase, that shortage exists in large part because of AI infrastructure demand competing for the same components. And here's the broader problem. As more and more companies exit the consumer tech space to chase the AI money, the companies that remain are competing for a shrinking pool of components. That competition drives prices up even further, and every single one of those increases gets handed down to us, the consumers. The gaming industry is caught in a situation where the cost of making hardware in games keeps rising, the cost of the components needed to build them keeps rising, and the economic pressure on consumers is rising as well. All happening at the same time. The uncomfortable truth about the situation is that a lot of it will resolve itself when the AI bubble finally corrects, and it will correct at some point. The number of companies chasing AI returns has reached a point that is fundamentally unsustainable. When reality sets back in and money starts to dry up, component demand will ease, prices will start to stabilize, and the market will find a new equilibrium. But the correction could be years away at this point, and in the meantime, we're all living through the consequences. And here's what scares me the most about the next few years. The next generation of consoles from PlayStation and Xbox are rumored to release sometime around 2027 or 2028. And given everything that we just talked about with the component costs, inflation, the AI squeeze on hardware, there is virtually no scenario where those consoles launch at a price that feels normal. We're almost certainly looking at a $600 or $700, maybe even higher cost for a new console at launch. The era of a new PlayStation or Xbox launching at $400 or $500 may generally be over at this point. And if that's the baseline for the hardware, imagine what the games are going to cost as well. We're entering a territory that would have seemed completely unhinged 10 years ago. $100 games, $700 consoles. The traditional entry point into gaming, which was buying a console and a couple of games, is becoming a generally significant financial decision for a lot of households around the world. The thing is, the industry knows this, and the reason nothing is changing is the same reason it never changes. People are still buying the things at these insane prices. And that's the most uncomfortable part out of all of this. Despite every price hike, despite every increase, despite every piece of news that should make someone stop and reconsider what they're doing, people keep buying. As long as demand holds, there is no financial incentive for any of these companies to reverse course. The correction, if it does come, won't come from good intentions. It will come from wallets closing, and we're not there yet. So the question isn't really whether prices are going to keep going up. They probably will. The real question is, at what point does this hobby become something only certain people can afford? And what happens to gaming when that line finally does get crossed? Because we might be closer to that line than anyone wants to admit. And here's the final layer to all of this. You're spending more on games, more on hardware, and more on subscriptions. And at the end of the day, you may not even own any of it. If you want to understand what that actually means and how companies can remove games from your library without warning, basically overnight, the video that's on your screen right now will explain that. Thanks for stopping by the corner. As always, peace.